Who doesn't love a poke cake? Poke cakes are any cake baked in a pan with holes poked throughout the cake, hence the name. Then a liquid or sauce like sweetened condensed milk, caramel sauce, chocolate sauce, or flavored gelatins before they gel is then poured on top to ooze down into the holes. Finally, a whipped topping is added along with any appropriate additions like toffee fruit or more sauce. If you've never heard of poke cake, you may have heard of it by its other names like chocolate dream cake or my mom's version called fat man's cake. Poke cakes have many name variations. Today I'm sharing one of our favorites, a chocolate caramel and toffee poke cake. While you can certainly use a boxed chocolate cake mix, caramel sauce ice cream topping, and Cool Whip, I'm using from scratch ingredients today, from the chocolate cake to the caramel sauce to the whipped topping. This cake is so heavenly, you just might find yourself making this more than you should. Let's check it out. For the ingredients you'll need, the homemade chocolate cake includes all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, unsweetened cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, butter, milk, neutral oil, sour cream, eggs, vanilla extract, and water. The oozing poke cake liquids include sweetened condensed milk and caramel sauce, homemade or store-bought. I'm using my homemade caramel sauce today. The recipe is linked below in the description. The toppings include whipped cream, store-bought or homemade. I'm using my homemade whipped cream frosting today. The recipe is also linked below in the description. And finally, toffee bits like Heath. While the ingredients seem like a lot, the cake itself is actually very quick and easy to make. So first we want to begin by preheating the oven to 350 degrees. For the single layer chocolate cake, you want to grease a 9 by 13 inch dish with cooking spray, butter, shortening, or oil, and then set that aside. To a large bowl, we're going to add 240 grams, which is 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 400 grams, which is 2 cups of granulated sugar, 90 grams or 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder, 8 grams, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 6 grams, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, and 6 grams or 1 teaspoon of salt. Then whisk or stir it well until the mixture has combined. Make a well in the middle of your mixture and then set this aside. To a 2-cup measuring cup or heat-proof bowl, we're going to add 57 grams, which is 1/4 of a cup or 4 tablespoons of butter. I diced the butter because diced butter melts more quickly and evenly. And then we're going to pour in 120 milliliters, which is 1/2 cup of milk. I prefer whole milk for the extra fat to maintain structure, but you can use whatever you have on hand. Heat the butter and milk in the microwave for 30 seconds. Stir and heat in additional 5-second intervals, stirring in between until the butter is melted. The residual heat should melt any little butter pieces that might remain. So I think we're pretty good here. Now we're going to add to this 58 milliliters, which is 1/4 of a cup of neutral oil. I'm using avocado oil. You can use canola or whatever you want. 128 grams, which is 1/2 cup of sour cream. You could also just use plain Greek yogurt. Full fat is best just because it helps the cake maintain a nice structure. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract to bring out the chocolate flavor. And then using my same vanilla extract bowl, I'm going to crack in 2 eggs. These eggs are at room temperature, so that's 1 egg. And my 2nd egg. You just want to whisk or stir your mixture until everything is combined. We want it to be smooth. It's smooth enough. Pour your butter and milk and the rest of the remaining liquids, add that to your, except for the water, to your cake mixture into the well that we've made. You want to heat up 237 milliliters, which is 1 cup of water to boiling. You can do this in the microwave or on the stove. And go ahead and start whisking or stirring in your liquid ingredients while our water is heating up. Since we mixed up our liquids and the egg is dispersed, along with being dispersed with the dry ingredients, then you do not need to worry about the water being too hot to add to this mixture. It's not going to cook the egg per se as we know it. So just pour carefully that hot liquid into your batter. See the steam? Then very carefully just combine that water with the rest of the batter. Just slowly stir it until it's all mixed in. Okay, check it out. It's a very thin batter, but it's all mixed in. So finally, just pour the cake batter into your prepared greased baking dish. Place your baking dish in the oven and let the cake bake for 30 to 35 minutes, or until a toothpick insert in the center comes out clean or with just a few crumbs. The cake is hot out of the oven. While it's still hot, we need to poke some holes in it. Hence the name of the cake, a poke cake. Now, you can use the round end of a wooden spoon. You can use end of a chopstick, or you can use like a thermometer end or ice pick. It's whatever you have. And you want to do this while the cake is hot. That way our sweet liquids can ooze down in the cake. So I think I'm gonna start with our little chopstick here. You just put it wherever you want your liquids to ooze down. If you want smaller holes, I think my mom always used an ice pick. Just put as many as you'd like. Okay, so if you use a spoon, you can see how big the holes are, or a chopstick. If you use a chopstick or the end of a thermometer, this is what you're gonna get. Then you wanna take a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. This is sweetened milk here. And you're just going to pour it over the top of the cake, letting it ooze down into the holes. Again, you wanna do this while the cake is still hot because you want that milk to get down into the holes, like a tres leches cake. Now we're gonna scatter about a half a cup of toffee bits over the top. This is where we're gonna get the crunch, sort of a different texture in our cake here. I like to reserve some to put on the top of the cake. And last but not least, take the caramel that you either made or bought, and we're gonna pour it over the top. The caramel should also ooze down into the holes. If your caramel is not pourable, just place it in the microwave for about 30 seconds to soften it up, and then it should pour right over your cake. You might want to reserve about a quarter of a cup at the end so that we can top the cake with a little bit more caramel. Okay, I think that's about good enough for me. I'm gonna reserve the rest for the top. Now you can see that's pure indulgence. We're gonna let the cake cool completely at room temperature. This could take an hour or two. Then we'll add the whipped cream frosting and the remaining toppings. Now that the cake has cooled completely, we can add the toppings and final touches. So we're gonna start with the homemade whipped cream that we have. You could use an 8-ounce container of whipped topping like Cool Whip. And you just want to gently, without deflating it, just place it over the top. Spread it out. If you want, you can add a drizzle of the caramel sauce if you have any left over. This basically just highlights that we have caramel in this cake. And finally, we're gonna scatter a few toffee bits over the top. Of course, you don't have to do this. You could just strictly do the whipped cream, and that's good enough. Again, we're highlighting what's inside the cake here. I think that looks pretty good. So that's it. You can cut and enjoy the cake now, or store it covered in the fridge until you're ready to serve it. Okay, let's cut into it and check it out. The first piece is always a little bit more difficult to get out. Oh yeah, look at that. Yum yum. Look at that cake. You can see the creaminess oozing down from the liquid that we poured over the holes. We've got a nice layer of frosting on the top. And of course, I love being able to see what's inside the cake between the caramel and the toffee on the top of that. There's a nice color contrast between the dark chocolate cake itself, the white topping, and then the caramel sauce and toffee. You have texture, you have visual appeal through the texture and the coloring. Check out how pretty you can make the serving after you place a piece on a plate. You can drizzle with a little bit more caramel sauce, top it with a few more toffee bits if you want, decorate the plate. So you can make single servings really pretty when you cut this and serve it. So let's take that bite. The cake is soft, the chocolate is rich due to the additions of caramel and sweetened condensed milk. I love the toffee crunch as a nice texture contrast to the fluffy cake, the sauces, and the whipped topping. And the whipped topping, oh my goodness. It's light, it's not too sweet, making it perfect to top this rich cake full of sweetness. This cake is certainly a heavenly indulgence. This is one of those cakes we love, but I don't make very often because it is so rich and it makes a ton. It's a great cake to share, take to potlucks, work gatherings, or share with friends. It would make a wonderful birthday dessert too. If you're not a baker, or you don't have time or want to take the time to make the cake from scratch, you could totally use a boxed chocolate cake mix, whatever you like. Then use a jarred commercial caramel sauce, whatever you like, and Cool Whip. It's that simple, or any other brand of whipped topping. You can imagine how easy that would be if you used prepared ingredients. Or you can simply make one or two of the elements from scratch, like the caramel sauce or the whipped cream. Whatever you do though, making the elements from scratch or using store-bought products, this dessert is hard to beat when it comes to indulgence and taste. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, make an indulgent poke cake like this chocolate and caramel version, and go bake the world.